What in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here?
This is what the greatest thing about sports is. You play to win the game.
You're listening to The Review on the OSG Podcasting Network.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Review. You are listening to the OSG Sports Podcasting Network. I am one of your hosts, OSG Phil, alongside OSG Nelson and Jay Wilkerson, 16. We are the online sports guys, and we like to talk college football. It's what we do. If you like what you hear, you like what you see, we have a phone app. John's showing it to you just a second ago. For those of you watching on YouTube, on our @OSG Sports YouTube channel, please subscribe now. The phone app, yes, you can get it from the Apple Store, from Google Play. It's free. It's got all of our podcasting content, and it'll keep you listening, give you plenty of stuff to talk about while you're stuck at home on sequestered quarantine, whatever word you want to use to call it. Stop flashing the phones, guys. We get it.
I particularly like to listen to some of our archived content, especially that rivalry show.
It's a doozy. Make sure you check it out. Once again, Google Play, the Apple Store, @OSG Sports. Our social media channels are all @OSG Sports. It makes it really easy to find. And guys, we got to talk college football, and the longer college football kind of stays dormant and the NCAA stays dormant, the more problems we're seeing pop up. Over the course of this past week, we've seen a couple of schools starting to furlough employees, i.e. coaches. Your thoughts? Is this inevitable? Is this a temporary thing? Where are we going in this direction?
You or me, Wokey?
Go.
All right. Greg Schiano takes a pay cut at Rutgers. PJ Fleck has taken a pay cut at Minnesota. As I sit here and buzz through everything that has gone on recently, Carl Durrell has taken a 10% pay cut at Colorado. You're looking at
Baker's at Syracuse take a pay cut.
Right. So you're looking at a lot of. I think that you had the initial optimism that was attached to something that, this might only take X amount of period of time. But as we're now a month in, you see athletic departments sitting there and trying to figure out ways to tighten their belts. We talked about the situation at the University of Cincinnati, and I still think that you look at especially the Go 5 schools, the group of fives, and you're going to see budgets that will be trimmed in various ways. Cincinnati decided to trim sports. And you have administrations who right now are trying to preserve the athletic departments that they have and have staff take pay cuts, deferrals, what have you. So not necessarily a surprise, the fact that you had those heavy hitters drop in this past week from the Power 5 schools, Wilkie. That's the part that adds to this equation.
Exactly. Colorado, you mentioned, taking the pay cuts up. 5 to 10% of their pay has been cut. A little deeper in Louisville. Not only have they furloughed over 45 employees in the athletic department there, but they've also had to eliminate 40 positions, which is a little deeper right now than all the Power 5 schools that I've seen on this list I have in front of me. John, you mentioned quite a few of them already. Missouri. Athletic department, 10% pay cut. The deepest one that I've seen so far, coincidentally, comes from my alma mater, Missouri State, a 33% pay cut on all employees. It's getting very, it's getting deeper and deeper in this. We're going to see more and more of this as the uncertainty of whether a college football season is going to be played. One thing I've kind of noticed in the last few days is all this talk about playing in the spring has really died down. And one of the things I was kind of hearing on the periphery about that was, and we are in the middle of the NFL draft, we'll talk about a little later. But the incentives for the juniors and the draft eligible juniors that had a chance and the seniors to play a spring schedule, theoretically maybe ending in early to mid June, and then having to get ready for an NFL training camp in 4 weeks. What was their incentive to play a spring schedule?
Yep.
And so that was staring college football directly in the face. And I've kind of noticed as we got to the NFL draft time, and that kind of became topic one for these draft eligibles, the Trevor Lawrences, the Justin Fields for next year, the draft eligible juniors that have a chance to be in the first round. Why would they want to play a college football season in the spring and then have to go to a training camp in 4 weeks? I mean, there's no time to recover.
You look at, and you still have the disparity of opinions with directors of athletics as to whether or not something will happen in the fall or something will happen later. Give you an example of the later. Arizona President Dr. Robert Robbins gives an interview to KVOI radio in Tucson. And this is what he tells the station, quoting from our friends at College Football Talk. "I'm really concerned about whether we're going to be playing football in the fall. My sense right now, I just don't see that happening." So that's the money quote from him. He says, "What I've been hearing more of is that maybe doing something combining both basketball and football for the spring, so January, February 2021, and try to play both of them. There will be all kinds of implications for television viewing and confusion. I don't know. We just don't have any answers right now." So that's what the president of Arizona tells a local radio station when he's interviewed about it. But then at the same time, you ask directors of athletics in FBS, and you go to the survey that was conducted by Brett McMurphy over at Stadium. 99% of the ADs who responded said that college football will be played, but how it will go down is the issue. The survey results of 114 athletic directors, about a quarter of them think that the season goes off without a hitch. Slightly more confidence in that happening among power conference athletic directors at 28%. Slightly less optimism from Go-Fives at 22%. A total of 41% of all ADs believe a full 12-game regular season schedule will be played beginning in October or November. 11% of the respondees believe the season begins in the spring. So that's what you get from Brett McMurphy in his unofficial poll.
There is a couple of positive signs, John and Phil, about starting the college football season on time, or at least a limited schedule, however they want to do this. Ronnie Green, the chancellor at the University of Nebraska, indicated that the University of Nebraska-Lincoln will be open in the fall for in-person instruction. And the Board of Regents in Iowa envision that everything will be back to normal in the fall semester, that Iowa, Iowa State, Northern Iowa will have students on campus by the time the fall semester. So those are some positive signs there that perhaps this is going to happen. A college football season is going to happen. I just really think that this week it was staring the ADs in the face that if there's not a college football season, there's going to be some apocalyptic cuts in their athletic program, especially at the Division I level.
Yep.
Where you're talking about up to 80% of your revenue, sometimes maybe more, and you just cannot withstand that kind of loss of income and be able to stay status quo. And I just think it's just become so overwhelming, that prospect, with the athletic directors and the college presidents. I got to throw them in there too, that they're trying to figure this out now. It's go time, really. Let's put it that way. That they're going to have to figure this out, because that sport cannot afford not to be paid. And when you've already lost the income from the NCAA tournament, which is another pretty good paycheck, and we're not going to have a College World Series, and that's a nice little addition to your income, especially for those who make it to Omaha. So I think all this realization came to a head this week, and this is why we're starting to see some movement toward playing the season.
Right. And adding to the list of potential optimistic moves, the University of Georgia announced, I want to say it was either last week or the week before, they have tentative plans to hold their spring graduation sometime in October. in person on campus. There are some indications that things like that may make all this discussion and all the things that we've talked about here a moot point. As we talked about last week in the show, look it up on our archives, by the way, on the phone app and on the YouTube channel. We talked about how several of the coaches have said they need minimum 6 weeks, 8 weeks at the most to kind of get everybody up to speed and up to football playing shape, which still gives us a little bit of a window here. The concern may be the discussion, and this is something better left to the medical experts than those of us who are not, that there may be a reflare-up of the virus come the fall when things start cooling off.
Right.
Which renders everything that's done in the interim moot. And then we're back to square one. I don't know how you plan for that, and other than to have a discussion about what your options are. If X happens, then Y has to happen in order for Z to happen. That's the only way we can approach it at this time. And talk about the hypotheticals, but we're talking about a shit ton of money.
Yeah.
We talked about that last week as well. One of the things that I saw this week that should be worrisome to most college teams is Learfield IMG, who holds the rights to a good majority of the Power 5 schools and some of the other smaller schools, has already started furloughing, cutting salary for staffers. That's not a good sign.
No, but once again, you have all of these employees, all of these campuses, all of these programs that are tied to Learfield IMG that have their networks and the way that it's a centralized location, and certain individuals are the studio hosts for Learfield IMG properties and all the orchestration and making sure that products go out one direction or another to make sure that the entire platform of broadcast energy for a particular school is headed in one direction. And when you have Learfield IMG sit there and call a timeout, that's a pretty big timeout that's being called. And, once again, if there's nothing going on, then short of having someone hitting a play button on an archive, and for those who are attached to their schools and they purchase those plans where you get to listen from anywhere in the world and all that kind of stuff. Right now, you just have folks playing a lot of archived material. It is a lot of old games, and it's done on basically, 6 to 12 hour wheels where you have 6 hours of content or 12 hours of content, and then it's replayed. So all you're having right now is somebody sitting there pushing buttons, and there's no live events. And so it's just the number of folks that are required currently to accomplish what Learfield IMG does on live events is trimmed at the moment. Obviously, you hope that this gets turned around as soon as humanly possible. But in the interim, this is an understandable move by Learfield IMG because there's nothing going on.
Right.
Correct. And a lot of those contracts have stipulations in them. Some of them haven't even been renewed, these advertising contracts. And so you've got some companies that are nervous right now and don't have the capital to spend right now on a year's worth of advertising on these college networks. And so that's playing into it. But, as far as the worries of the virus coming back in the fall, I've read that too, but I'm reading so much more about some of the absolutes that we're starting to hear about this virus and the percentages. And I think we're getting a better understanding of who's affected, who carries the most risk. And I think by the time we get to the fall, we're going to know a lot more of that, to where we're not at this point anymore, where we can manage it and still have our sports events with people in the stands. We can still go out and work. I'm very optimistic right now, realistic, but very optimistic right now about how things are going to be in the fall.
One of the things John brought up when we were talking pre-show about what we were going to discuss today in the episode was, with all the furloughs and the pay cuts and the things going on, one of the people who ended up going on furlough, Wake Forest football head coach Dave Clawson, only to find out a day after that was made public The Demon Deacons parted ways with head basketball coach Danny Manning and are on the hook for $16 million. What kind of a look is that? What kind of a message does that send?
Not a good one.
And that's not even getting into the fact that the Danny Manning contract may have been one of history's worst college coaching basketball contracts in history.
The Kirk Ferentz deal for college basketball. Wilkie, as the ACC guru here, I'm heading your way with this one.
Guru.
Mm-hmm.
That was not a deal John Curry put together. That was Ron Wellman's deal. So Curry was stuck with it. He had to wash his hands. It is what it is. And I thought it was an interesting quote from Oklahoma Athletic Director Joe Castiglione talking about the buyouts. And basically, as he sees it, these crazy buyouts are a thing of the past from this day forward. That these ADs and these higher ups, administrative types in the athletic department, and are realizing that with this scare, with the loss of income, they cannot manage these buyout clauses, especially when your sources of income, i.e. donors, who usually have to come in and write the check, well, they're seeing their income and their businesses decline. So I think one of the things we're going to see out of this is these crazy buyouts that we've heard the last 10 years for these coaches' contracts are really going to be a thing of the past. You know, I'm thinking about the one Bobby Petrino had at Louisville when he came back the second time around.
Yeah.
That's not going to be there anymore. And I think we talked about a few weeks ago about the salary numbers with college coaches. Has that plateaued now, and is it going to start to be reeled back in with this going on? I don't know if that's the case. I think there's still going to be a pretty hefty dollar for successful coaches, especially at the Power 5 level, especially with some of the top programs. But I don't think it's going to be spread throughout the Power 5 as it has been. So I think some fiscal restraint might happen out of this, might come out of all this.
So then let me Phil, before you go, I'm just, so then there's a coach that I can't mention by name.
But it's guaranteed, right?
Yeah.
Guaranteed.
So in a situation like his in College Station, Texas, when that number's on the board, and well, we could say Kirk Ferentz's contract too, but you know that's an entirely different animal. But for the sake of argument, let's say that the folks in Texas are fed up in College Station with that particular coach at some point. With the economy going through what it is right now, what do you think the discussions are going to be like in boardrooms with long rectangular tables when it comes to the resolution of that particular contract? If Texas A&M comes hat in hand and says, you know, dog, we know that we signed this, but, you know, the economy's different.
That's what I was going to get to. Question leading out of what Wilkie said. Are we on the precipice of major change in college athletics? Have college finances and the amount of money passing through college football in particular, has it gotten too big? Is there too much there? And have they been throwing their money around too irresponsibly? And that's a broad question, I know.
I'm trying to think how I can answer this because
I think you're dealing with the revenue that's in front of you, and I think that what you're doing is a two-way street. And Wilkie, I won't take up too much time. I think it's a two-way street here. When it comes to the revenues, when it comes to inbound, and what you have from boosters and athletics departments and television contracts and all that kind of stuff. You're dealing with the money that's put in front of you. Yet at the same time, athletics departments are also dependent upon the institutions that they're attached to. In the Power Five, you don't
Depending on what way?
Yeah,
just
So a lot of these athletic programs are separated
sep-
from the
right.
academic.
right. But the lower end folks, I would imagine, are still not. They're the lower end folks.
Oh,
the
yeah.
the Go Fives are the ones where we sit here. What was it, UConn, that got 2/3 of their athletic budget from the university itself?
Oh yeah, most of the bottom 30 or 40 schools in terms of revenue generation in Division One, most of those schools have to either get loans or are supplemented by the school themselves, just because they can't afford to work on their own independent of the actual university, which is the whole rich get richer, poor get poorer problem that college sports has. And that was what prompted my question, because you're talking about a world where those who aren't rich can't even play anymore because they don't have revenue, and that money that's been coming in has gotten so big and they've just spent it so willy-nilly, where you get a Jimbo Fisher who's got a gazillion-dollar buyout deal with Texas A&M. They're stuck with him for the next 10 years, like it or not.
It's not a buyout; it's guaranteed money.
Yeah.
I mean, the entire contract's guaranteed. So whatever that amount is, I can't recall it right now, but it's guaranteed to him. As far as your question with Texas A&M and when that time ever comes,
Let's say.
yeah, because I'm sure there'll be extensions along the way, and that'll be worked out. We've all seen the price of oil right now,
Mhm.
and we all know that Texas economy is largely tied to oil, but you know, how much do those guys have in the bank? We're talking about the boosters and so forth.
Mhm.
What's the endowment at Texas A&M,
Yeah.
and are they willing to spend some of that endowment on a buyout of a football coach?
Yeah.
Or what's the cash reserves within the athletic department? I mean, Texas A&M is one of the richest schools, athletic department
Number
wise,
two in
in the
revenue
country.
nationwide.
Exactly. And we haven't seen that affected yet, as far as a college football season being not played or severely limited, or people just not showing up to games or buying tickets. So, and maybe that's starting to happen. That's one of the things that scared ADs this week, is that ticket renewals were probably plummeting and over all the uncertainty. But I think it's a fair question, Phil, what you're asking about. Okay, how are we ever going to? Are they going to restrain themselves from this crazy spending? Let's take a look at it this way: the TV contracts and these networks that have been formed by Big Ten, by SEC, and now by the ACC. You know, all that was for revenue generation, and the SEC and the Big Ten really generate some revenue with those networks. The ACC, I have not seen the numbers yet, but I'm sure they're going to get a nice little payday out of that too.
And not quite on those, not quite on the scale of the big two, but not far behind.
Yeah.
Not far behind. The Pac-12, it's been their network has had some challenges, we'll say.
Yeah, we'll say. Yeah.
But
Thanks, Larry Scott.
okay, all right. So you had that new revenue coming in, and they were using that to improve facilities, coaching contracts, and so forth. And that appears to be there. Although, here's what I'm interested in.
Mhm.
SEC and ACC Network are both owned by Disney.
Mhm.
And Disney right now is kind of in a world of hurt. I mean, now the parks are open. I've read in the New York Times they've lost $30 million a day
Furloughing employees.
Able to produce.
You've got
they
your
make
money,
a ton of money off of.
your cash cow on the media side. ESPN has no events to the broadcast. They had the draft, but that brought some money in, I'm sure, but not a whole lot to feed the mouse. So
No $50 billion Avengers movies either.
So is that going to trickle down to those networks to where they're going to have to cut back quite a bit?
ESPN's already done it.
What's that?
ESPN's already done it. They've already asked the bulk of their analysts and experts and people on air to take a pay cut. It's already
They're
happened.
not filling positions and they're eliminating positions.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the interesting thing to me about how those networks are going to be, SEC and ACC networks are going to be affected, and how that affect those conferences' bottom line. Big Ten with Fox. I know Fox has done a few cutbacks as well. I haven't read anything about furloughs, but I don't know. Big Ten might be a little better position. Probably it's still not ideal, but I'll have to do a little more research on that. But there's another form of revenue that could be affected, and as Joe Castiglione, the Oklahoma athletic director, said, the era of these big buyouts for football and men's basketball coaches is gone, because now you got to show some fiscal restraint, and they're realizing that football is the cash cow, is the golden goose that funds everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we talked about it last week. If that college football season is not played, ooh, my gosh, can you imagine how apocalyptic that'll be for these athletic programs? Especially when you start seeing the female athletic programs start getting eliminated. Because when that happens, I think that's where the proverbial poop will hit the fan.
Yeah, and it's an interesting catch-22, because the whole reason the buyouts for coaches escalated like it did was because coaches were playing musical chairs.
Right. But I think, and I'm beginning to feel that college football is going to kind of ride the coattails of the NFL here, because I know we're going to talk about the draft in our next block, but the NFL appears to be hell-bent on keeping everything on schedule. And they realize that everybody is paying attention to the pro football right now. With baseball not being played, with basketball and hockey all on hiatus during this, the NFL went ahead with their draft. It is top of mind everywhere. I think college football is going to start recognizing that, if they haven't already. And I think that's one of the things college football is doing right now to play in the fall. They see that football is top of mind, right on those coattails to the NFL. I mean, training camps are going to start in July. They are. The NFL is hell-bent on getting those started in one way or another, and get the season started, whether they're playing with no fans or a limited amount of fans or full stadiums. To me, they just seem hell-bent on getting this season done on schedule.
Well, John, it goes back to what we talked about last week, too. Colleges and pros are on two different playing fields when it comes to actually getting games played.
Yep.
And most of the college presidents have already gone on record saying is, if our campus isn't open, we're not playing, period.
Yes.
And that means having people on campus. How do you balance that?
Well, I will introduce the idea of fiscal responsibility, being prepared for whatever eventuality. And I'll give you the example of the University of Wisconsin. Barry Alvarez, the AD, said Wisconsin is financially in relatively good shape. He said that in a meeting with the Wisconsin Athletic Board, the university is bracing to take a net revenue drop of $4 to $5 million in the current fiscal year, all things considered, compared to a number of universities and programs. You look at that. He credits years of fiscal responsibility at Wisconsin, allowing the Badgers to weather the impact the coronavirus outbreak has had, quoting the Wisconsin State Journal. Thanks to sound management of our finances over the years, we're well positioned to withstand a temporary decline in revenues. And so that's, you got one member of the Big Ten who's sitting there saying stuff like that.
You got the rare program there in Wisconsin who hasn't built the $50 million athletic facility, made major renovations to their football stadium here of recent vintage, and they don't churn through football coaches. That allows you, if you're like Alvarez and able to run your program responsibly and successfully in that way, that's awesome. And that's what you should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
But
And I think it was about 10, 15 years ago they had the Kohl Center built for men's basketball, and that was purely, I believe, fully funded by the guy that runs the Kohl's department store.
yeah,
Herb Kohl. So yeah, I mean, when you have something like that, that helps in the bottom line. So yeah, good fiscal responsibility there by Wisconsin. But to your point, John, and having the students there, it looks like the University of Nebraska is going to have in-person classes, or as they say, in-person instruction. And the Iowa Board of Regents have indicated that the fall semester is going to go on as normal at Iowa State, Northern Iowa, and whatever Iowa institutions that they also oversee. So I think everything is pointing toward everything starting normally in college football with a limited schedule or a full schedule. And I'm pretty optimistic that we're going to see some of these kickoff events in late August and early September.
Last hypothetical before we wrap things up here on the first block of the review on the OSG Sports Podcasting Network. What about the potential for, as Wilkie mentioned, some of the Midwestern schools opening things back up, but then you're still dealing with the East Coast and the West Coast and some of the Florida schools who are facing potential inability to open up?
Yeah, you're going to have, this is something that has to be looked at by all parties involved. And this is going to be a rolling situation where you're going to have folks who are going to be slower in their release and making sure that they think that their situations are safe. I believe that as we're talking, 5 states do not have current shelter in place. I think it's both Dakotas, Nebraska, Iowa, and Arkansas. So they would probably be at the head of the curve when it comes to having events go. But then it's up to the other individual states, and it's going to be something that I think the other 45 are going to have to look at and sit there and go, okay, do we think that we can do an event behind closed doors for the sake of television so we can get that television revenue going, make sure that no one is on our campus, to have the gatherings that would violate social distancing procedures and that kind of stuff. And this is the dance that we're going to have to be looking at over the next couple of months if states aren't confident about having complete and total open air events where you're going to have folks who are going to be more than 50 in number, 100 in number, that kind of thing. And so I think that if you take the 5 to 8 states that don't have the shelter in place right now, put them to the side, it's to the other 42. And literally it's going to be a case by case basis, I think, when it comes to what's going to be open and what isn't.
Well, again, I think we're in the study of COVID-19 and where we're at today and where we're going to be by that time. We're starting to see some absolutes in the study, and some positive signs about some of the research and things that have been going on with COVID-19. So as the good news continues about COVID-19 and the absolutes, I think by the time we get to that point, there'll be a lot more knowledge about how this disease has progressed, how many people that have had it and are building the immunity or whatever. I think by that time we're going to have that information to where we're going to start playing again. I will say this: I think the West Coast schools have probably been the most hostile toward and I'm talking about Oregon, Washington, and California. Seem to be the most hostile about getting sporting events going again. And I fear for the Pac-12 if they're going to continue that hostility, because if the other 4 begin on time and the Pac-12 still has, the states in the Pac-12 are still doing some kind of shelter in place or no public gatherings or whatever, I mean, a conference that needs something positive to happen, I want to say it's a death nail, but it would almost be not necessarily SMU death penalty type, but I can't see how the Pac-12 could recover from something like that in 10 years.
I think at the end of the day, you're looking at a scenario where you need to have all of the NCAA member institutions, all the conferences at each level, all have to be on the same page with this decision. It's got to be all or nothing. I just don't see how you could do it with 10 open, 10 not, 20 open, 10 not, or 45 open and 10 not. It's got to be all or nothing.
And then think about the bowl structure if you don't have conference.
Yeah, the bowls are almost irrelevant at this point.
But I mean, well, think about. I mean, just from the conference standpoint, let's take the Pac-12 example that Wilkie brought out there. If the Pac-12 is behind, everybody else in trying to figure out when they're going to be up and running, is this still going to be, wins and losses to determine who goes to bowls and who does that kind of stuff? I mean, what are the bowls even going to be like in the 2020 season?
And that's why you have to get everybody on the same page before you can even get that far.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to get states talking to schools. You've got to get schools talking to states. The NCAA and its schools need to speak as one voice when it comes to this conversation. It's not something that everybody can do individually. And until that happens, I think we're at an impasse.
Well, this is the things that I think stared ADs in the face last week.
Yeah.
These scenarios are popping up. The fact that no revenue coming in from football. Oh, that is over 80% of our annual operating budget.
Mm-hmm.
Bowl games. Oh my gosh, we got to think about these bowl tie-ins because we're getting some revenue off of that. And how are those bowl games going to build their revenue streams? All this is, and I think the NFL draft brought a lot of this to the forefront, as well as seeing their bottom lines. With the furloughs and the terminations and the having to trim staff. I mean, this was a telltale sign this week, and we just mentioned a few of those things, and I'm sure there's something there that we're not even thinking of that are hitting these ADs hard. And how many of those guys have had a decent night's sleep in the past 2.5 weeks as they're looking at their ledgers and meeting with their accountants and their procurement people? I mean, this is, like I say, the poop hit the fan this week.
No doubt.
Let's hope that they all get on the same page and the messaging stays consistent. And that way we can move forward and get college football back on its feet and moving forward again. Something to look forward to as we inch ever so slowly toward the summer months. We still have a little bit of time. Guys, what do you say we hit the break here? And
yeah, we've only been going for 45 minutes.
I know, really.
When we come back in the second block of the review, we're going to talk a little bit about that NFL draft that we mentioned a few times here in the first block, plus a few other things going on in the world of college football, some good, some funny, some different. That and more when the review returns right after this.
The OSG app is up and running on your Android or iPhone. Install the OSG app and listen to our podcast from college football, soccer, and lacrosse. What are you waiting for? Download the OSG app today.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency, or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinsky of Apolinsky & Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
This is why Mike Vrabel's a beast. Look at this guy and his family. Look at this guy.
Thanks for sticking around, folks. You are listening to The Review. It's the OSG Sports College Football Podcast on the OSG Sports Podcasting Network. OSG means online sports guys. That's us, all three of us. I am OSG Phil, OSG Nelson, Jay Wilkerson 16, and if you were watching at home, I'm gesturing toward where they currently sit on my home computer screen.
Which is very important.
Yes. Proximity is what matters here.
Guys, we talked a lot in the first block of the show about where college football's at this current time, but we'd be derelict in our duty if we did not talk about what happened this past weekend, and that's the annual NFL draft of college football prospects.
I've heard of that.
And I don't know about for the two of you. For me, it was one of the most unique and fun and different broadcasts that I have ever seen, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
It was like if we did it here.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, yeah. Complete with the dog interruptions and the wives coming and going.
Can somebody close can you close my door?
I forget which coach it was. Had their son in the bathroom sitting down and
Vrabel. It was
Mike Vrabel. Yes, Mike Vrabel. Yes,
along with one of his other sons in a unitard and a third one wearing a basketball jersey. One of the more surreal scenes that I've ever seen.
Shut the door, son, while you're doing your business.
And by the way, if you want to know what my thoughts individually were about the broadcast and where I think the NFL should go with it, check out my column on theonlinesportsguys.com. That's our website. Got to do the gratuitous self-promotion. Guys, broadcast being aside, what did you think of the draft? It was interesting to see what and how things developed because there wasn't as much second guessing and super hyper analyzation and breaking down and finding the bad things about college football players that we normally see.
I do know a couple guys that are Jets fans, and it's a yearly ritual that they bitch about the first round pick.
Of course.
Oh, yeah.
That doesn't change. So yeah, I agree with you, Phil.
Two words, Jeff Lageman.
Exactly. Well, I mean, I was shocked that Joe Burrow went number one. I mean, I don't know about you, but I thought that was a stretch.
The only thing stunning was the fact that it took them the full 15 minutes.
34 minutes from sign on to draft pick.
Yeah, that was the down part of the broadcast where we got 34 minutes of talking head babble on ESPN. But once things got going, it picked right up. Even the Jolly Roger was in the spirit. He got caught later in the evening putting his hand in the M&M jar.
And that was unique.
Apparently, he had been devouring M&Ms over the course of the broadcast.
Yeah, and you had who was it? Was it the Jets screen that had the naked guy in the background as a part of it? Because you have the fan screen behind Roger Goodell where he sits there and they're all heckling him and he wants them to heckle him even more. I want to say it was the Jets screen where one of those screens, one of those blocks, had a naked guy in it. In addition to Vrabel having a guy in his bathroom in his house down in the Vrabel basement.
Vrabel says it was just somebody sitting on a bench.
Right. But no, yeah, one of the blocks in, I want to say it was the Jets grid, was a naked guy.
Really, there weren't a whole lot of surprises in the draft in terms of who went where.
No, but I think that everybody looks at Jake Fromm and wonders, from at least our footprint in the Southeast, why it was too late that Jake went as late as he did.
At all.
But he's round 5 to Buffalo, and that will be an interesting situation for Jake. But
I think he's going to be a great backup there.
Oh no question. I mean,
you could close your eyes and listen to him, the description of him playing college football, and the first thing that comes to mind is career backup Case Keenum.
That's true.
that's basically what Jake Fromm is. So the fact that he slipped to the 5th round didn't surprise me. His combine stuff was average at best.
His hands were too small. His feet were too small.
He didn't wow anybody throwing the ball. His strength has never been his ability to throw a deep ball fast.
Then the out route from one side to the other.
It's all been about his brain. He's going to make somebody a heck of a head football coach in about 20 years.
Yeah.
But he could carve out a nice career for himself as a lifelong backup. I could see that happening. That's his ceiling. His floor, unfortunately, is Aaron Murray, which is a quick flame out.
Here's your Aaron Murray reference for the day. Your Atlanta Legends.
There you go. I thought the Bills had a great draft. And I think they're the front runner now in the AFC East, if you're asking me. However, and I was going to get to that, Phil, because are you wearing that because Tua Tagovailoa is now slotted to be your starting quarterback or in the hunt?
Yes, it might have something to do with it. I was quite proud of my Dolphins. They drafted well, filled some holes on offensive line, filled some holes in defense. I liked everything they did. Picking up Matt Breida from San Francisco on a trade late on Saturday for a 5th-round pick was an excellent pickup. Former Georgia Southern standout, too, I might add, Matt Breida.
Yeah.
That would be the alma mater.
Mm-hmm.
I love what they did. They didn't do anything fancy. They didn't do anything crazy. They stayed where they are, as most teams did. There was some juggling here and there in terms of who did what. But for the most part, everybody stayed at home because they couldn't get their in-person meetings. They couldn't get their pro day workouts with everybody. And that makes a huge difference in the eyes of the NFL scouts, John, doesn't it?
It does. And sticking in the AFC East briefly, having Bill Belichick's Alaskan Klekai Nike make their selection of the kicker from Marshall, who the NFL Network and ESPN and ABC actually had no video of.
Well, yeah, but it gets worse. Apparently, said kicker also has a tattoo of a right-wing militia group.
The 3%ers and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, and then with the New England Patriots, obviously it looks like it's Jarrett Stidham and Brian Hoyer as your saviors. But I will say this. Great free agent pickup by the Patriots in bringing in Will Hastings from Auburn to pair up with Jarrett Stidham, considering that Hastings was the leading receiver under Stidham when Stidham was at Auburn. So that was a good connection there. I think that really, if you look past the draft itself, the undrafted free agent lists are always the fun part for me, those round 8 guys that end up going to teams, and you get to see who's ending up where as UDFAs, and seeing folks line up and figure out who's going to go. Like, I'll give you an underrated one. Bronson Recksteiner, who? Put up Bronson Recksteiner, fullback, Kennesaw State University, dog-faced gremlin 2.0.
Is that Rick's boy?
Yes.
Nice.
Baltimore Ravens picked him up, and if you saw the workout that was posted to Kennesaw State's social media, he destroyed his workout. So to have someone like that have an opportunity to go to a place like Baltimore, that to me is what it looks like to see the round 8 guys. And that's the fun part for me in all of this. And, when you look at the draft in and of itself, you see a guy like a Rodrigo Blankenship end up as a round 8er going to Indianapolis, which is a tremendous situation for him. Yeah. Learning behind
under Vinatieri.
Right, learning under an Adam Vinatieri, kicking indoors. I think that's a fantastic move for a team like Indianapolis. And so for me,
27-year-old Adam Vinatieri.
Yes, and I will alert folks right now. In the dirty, in the NFC South, pay attention the weeks that Atlanta plays Carolina, because these smack talk that will go between Derek Brown of the Carolina Panthers and Marlon Davidson of the Atlanta Falcons was already legendary in college, where you had two fat guys calling each other out every single day on campus. Now that they're on rival teams in the NFC South, those weeks, make sure that if you're a member of the media attending both of these teams' press opportunities, that you put microphones in the faces of Marlon Davidson and Derek Brown. Their jousting on camera will be legendary. Guarantee it.
Is that a suggestion for NFL Films?
That is a suggestion for us. NFL Films can follow in line.
We'll be at the head of that line.
We'll be at the head of that line.
All right. So since you guys have exposed who your teams are.
Well, no, mine's the Chargers. I wish that they'd have picked up Isaiah Simmons in the first round instead of Justin Herbert, but I understand what they did.
I thought your boys had a good draft, John.
Too.
KJ Hill from Ohio State, one of the fastest dudes that's out there, late round pickup by the secondary tenants at Kroenke World. But I'm worried about Tyrod Taylor at quarterback.
Tolbert. I mean,
Well-
he's Fitzpatrick. He's like my team's Ryan Fitzpatrick. Just keeping the seat warm.
There you go.
Well, the good thing about the La Chargers,
Yeah.
well, a couple of things. They had a better draft than the Rams. And of course, nobody cares about the Chargers in LA.
Nope.
And the other thing is they killed it with their uniform reveals.
Yes,
Oh,
very
yeah.
well played.
Very nicely played. So I'm with you on the Chargers. Of course, you guys know I'm a Cowboys guy, and
Mhm.
they had an excellent draft. CeeDee Lamb falling right in their lap. Isn't that going to be a nice little option for Dak Prescott? Trevon Diggs shoring up that defensive backfield. I love that pick, and many others. Bradley Anae from Utah. I mean, an edge rusher that they
I was
need.
going to say, you
and
need him you put him at the edge, or you put him like a Bruce Irvin position.
Exactly. And with who knows about Sean Lee's situation,
Mm-hmm.
he's been so injury prone. They need someone that has that kind of motor that Sean Lee has. And with him and now Landon Vander Esch on that defense, I really like the way the Cowboys. And then getting Ben DiNucci from James Madison as your clipboard holder to wrap up the draft. May not be a big deal, but what the heck. But I love the way the Cowboys drafted. So
what about the swagger for Jera to do it from his yacht?
Oh, I think he got topped though. Did you see Cliff Kingsbury's palace?
Oh, yeah, I did. He's just kicking back. He's got a fire going on in his backyard when it's 94 degrees outside in Phoenix.
I think that tops Jerry's yacht.
$250,000 yacht. Jera's got it all lined up, and then you've got Cliff Kingsbury just kind of chilling, looking like he's like from a mergers and acquisitions firm who just made he's like he just came off the set of Billions or something, and he's making his draft picks. So
jostling in his palatial Los Angeles home.
yeah, so it was that was a pretty decent piece of swagger from Cliff Kingsbury, no doubt.
Did you see that, Wilkie?
No, I didn't. I did not see Cliff Kingsbury's lair.
Yeah, trust me, it's all over social media. It is all over the place.
Go look it up. Guys, you got anything else you want to hit on here while we're talking news and notes?
Yeah, one quick thing about the NCAA, and the AP has reported that the NCAA is pushing forward a recommendation. Ralph Russo reports on a recommended rule change to allow student athletes to receive compensation for the use of their name, image, and likeness, currently being reviewed by college administrators before being passed on to the Board of Governors. Officials are scheduled to meet early this week to see if this recommendation gets fast-tracked. It could be adopted as early as this year. As reported, athletes would be required to share all financial details of their contracts to their respective athletics departments. Use of the school's name and likeness will be prohibited for the use of the student athlete. As an example that's given by our friends at College Football Talk, a player from a university could sign a deal with a car dealership but he would not be allowed to use his school's name or logo in any form. And the Southeastern Conference, when I saw this rule come through, one of the examples that popped into my head was a guy that we previously referenced, Rodrigo Blankenship, because of all of the T-shirts and all of the gear with the spectacles under the helmet, that kind of stuff. So folks were making dollar off of that. How much of that was Blankenship available to get above board? Zero. So now that you could have athletes who really do well in college have that chance to have that kind of revenue Wilkie pop up. I think that if this gets fast tracked, it's another step closer to seeing stuff that should have happened a long time ago.
I don't know if it's going to get fast tracked, but it's going to happen. The momentum is just there. The money is there. There's no legal standing for the NCAA or any of the conferences to keep it going. As it has been in the past. I'm all for it. Let these guys market themselves while they can. And I don't know how fast-tracked it'll be, but it's going to happen.
Fast enough tracked.
One interesting little tidbit off of what John said about not being able to use these schools' logos or name in the promos. How much you want to bet that it ends up like the NFL, where technically the NFL players aren't allowed to use it either, unless said business also sets a contract with the NFL.
Yeah.
Another way to generate a little bit more revenue for the colleges.
Mm-hmm.
Have their own separate deal with said endorser. And example of a car dealer pays the University of Georgia an extra $100,000 to be able to use
the official car dealer of the University of Georgia.
The official car dealership of Missouri State Athletics.
There you go. That's exactly where I was going with that. I'm surprised the NCAA. I'm surprised yet not that the NCAA hadn't thought of that yet. They probably will because
linear thinking.
Yeah, there's too much money involved for them not to.
Yep.
But an interesting proposition, nevertheless. Guys, you got anything else today you want to talk about?
No.
Wilkie?
I'm tapped out.
You're tapped out? Okay.
I'm tapped out.
That being said, we will wrap things up on the review. Guys, where can they find us on social media and the blatant promos?
You can see us on our Twitter page at OSG Sports and Facebook at OSG Sports. Please go to our Twitter page. Tell us what you think. If we read it on air, Phil will think about something that will send you.
High and hearty handshake.
Yeah, exactly. But we'd love to hear from you guys about what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, or just whatever your opinion you have, and
what
we'll
we're doing
on air. Now you can hear us on our host site Spreaker, which is and also on our phone app that John showed you, and we've got we're also on Stitcher Radio, Apple iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, wherever you catch your podcast, you can find us there at OSG Sports, at our college football icon. And guys, I'm really ready to start talking about speculation from this coming season. I'm getting tired of talking about all this negative stuff. I want to talk about who's going to be a national champion, who's going to be a surprise team, and who's going to be put on probation.
I think he's ready for conference preview time, isn't he?
I think so. MGM Grand has put out their favorites for the trophy that is awarded at the end of the season to the top athlete in college football. Shocking no one, Trevor Lawrence is a 2-5 favorite to win that particular trophy. Justin Fields is second at 7-2, and an offensive lineman is on the board at 5-1, as a matter of fact. So that's your number 3 candidate for the Heisman Trophy. It is, hang on just a second, efforting. Oregon tackle, Penei Sewell, 5-1. He's right now number 3 in the clubhouse.
Okay. That's different.
Different, yes, quite.
And on that perplexed note, we will wrap things up on the show. For OSG Nelson, for the currently not in the video monitor, Jay Wilkerson 16, I am OSG Phil. We are the Online Sports Guys. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We will join you again next week. Have a great one. We'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.